Hi and welcome back. This is Danny Rams from Maverick Spirit Astrology. Today I'm going to go in through the planets and their meaning and the houses in a spiritual astrology way to kind of help you with your process of spiritual awakening and plus understanding your natal chart and the transits throughout your natal chart. So today I have put up the Sun through Pluto, the first house through 12th house. And the Sun is about I am. It's about where the spotlight is in your house. If you're someone who is born with the Sun in your 5th house, it's actually where the home of the Sun is in Leo. So it doesn't necessarily mean that your 5th house is Leo. It just has that Leo-esque energy to it. It has that fire, so it would be the spirit, and the builder, because it's a fixed sign, it's a spirit builder. So if you have your Sun in the 5th house, that's a spirit builder. This is the vibrancy that you put out. This is your joy and vulnerability house. This is all very Leo things, like my pride, my loyalty. It's really someone who's going to have like the spotlight on them. When they walk in a room, it's just like, a huge energy comes with them. The moon travels every 2.5 days, and it does, the sun moves every 4 weeks throughout your entire house. So throughout the zodiac wheel, it's going to take the whole year to go through the 1st to 12th house, right? So the sun, as it moves through each house, you're going to match it up with what house the spotlight is on. In your natal chart, it's where the spotlight is always on. So when the sun meets up with your sun around your birthday, in your zodiac, in your natal chart, it's actually going to tell you more about yourself during that time period for that 4 weeks. The moon is I feel. It's about the vibrations that you keep inside you. It's the ruler of Cancer. It's the ruler of the 4th house. So your home roots, inner energy. It's everything of where you have came from and where you're going to go from there on out. And it travels throughout the house, your houses, every 2.5 days. It's a quicker cycle. And this is something where it's going to go through the 1st to 12th house every month. It changes. So depending where that full moon was, that full moon eclipse, where it was on that Taurus full moon, is kind of where you actually want to keep some of this light of where your Taurus zodiac sign is in which house. So your 1st house isn't going to be everybody's 1st house. Your 1st house is going to be your 1st house. So if you're an Aries rising, it's your 1st house. If you're a Cancer rising, it's your 1st house, and so forth. So going on to Mercury is, I think it's the ruler of messages, communication, skill set, very hands-on skills, okay? So it's ruler of Gemini and Virgo, and of the 3rd house and the 6th house. So it's the logical thinking and communication skills mixed. So the 3rd house, again, is the mind planner, and the 6th house is the body planner. So this is body and mind planning. This is where you need to be flexible, okay? You need to be flexible in the areas of Mercury, because Mercury moves fast. Even when it's in retrograde, it's still moving out every like 15 to 60 days. It kind of like moves. So because it wasn't or is in retrograde and won't be in a little bit, you're going to kind of see where that retrograded moment was, as far as where I think. Right now, just to go into, like, if you had Mercury in, let's say you're an Aries rising and you have Mercury natally in your 7th house, it's kind of where you put out your messages and how you interpret messages with other people. It also has to do with your shadow work. So this is something like, how do I communicate to myself as well, the way that I communicate with others? That would just like be a for instance. Venus is, I love everything luxurious, everything I love. Love is a big, big vibration. So someone with Venus in the 1st house is somebody who also has a little bit of a vibrancy to them, somebody who's very like just beautiful to look at sometimes too, even if like Venus is the chart ruler, so it would be Taurus or Libra risings, depending on where their Venus is as well. It's just like they have all this love for the world and for things and for people. You know, it's equal. So the second house is the Taurus. It's the self-worth, it's the virtues, it's materially it would be money's worth, right? But where do you get your money's worth, or where is your finances at? But in the spiritual realm, I just want you to think of it as self-worth, or where your virtues are at. And in the seventh house, it's of partnerships, marriage house as well, but it's also unity. It's about partnerships. This is also has to do with open enemies. So I added shadow work here because you can be your biggest enemy sometimes. I mean, let's all be honest. Like, that's just how we are sometimes, where we don't have enough self-love and we give love out and we're not receiving it back. And that's something that we have to look into as we go through, you know, our chart. You'll kind of realize like some parts of your life, where didn't I love myself, you know, and what was, maybe I won't look up the transit, but maybe I'll look up where my Venus was, you know, because Venus stays for about 1 to 3 months in each house. And when you're born with it, let's say in your 11th house, so it would take 1 to 3 months to go to my 12th house, or our 12th house, I should say, first, second, third, you know, it does that. So it goes like 1 to 3 months. It kind of travels with the sun, and Mercury as well travels with the sun. So it's usually around the time where if your sun is in Aries, your Mercury and Venus might also be in Aries, or it could be in Pisces, or it could be in Taurus, depending on how, like the day you were born. But yeah, Mercury and Venus travel along with the sun. You won't find it too far off in the houses. Like your sun and Mercury might be in the same house, or your Venus and Mercury might be in the same house, but kind of like if it was in the first, if you had sun in the first house, you would have like Mercury and Venus in the 12th house type of a deal. Okay. So on to Mars is the action. Okay, I act. Where is my action plan? Where is my natal chart? Will tell me where my action is in this lifetime, right? Where do I need to put my action? It's not so much a spotlight, it's the action. So it's where the spotlight correlates with it, because it's also a fiery essence, and so is Jupiter. So the sun, Mars, and Jupiter are all fire planets, and wherever they are in your chart, you're actually going to see sun, flashlight, Mars, action, and Jupiter is like the joy, growth, and the, it has a lot to do with like where our preacher is, like where that vibrancy comes from. I did want to put, so moon, what other, okay, so Pluto, Neptune, and the moon are all the water signs. So these are our soul planets. The sun, Mars, and Jupiter are our spirit planets. We have Venus is at like a different aspect, because Venus is earth as well as air. So when you do something like that, even with Mercury, Mercury is Gemini air and Virgo earth, and Venus is Taurus earth and Libra air, right? So again, this is going to be air is being the mind and earth is being the body. So Mercury and Venus both have body essences of them, and they also have mind essences of them. So I think and I love come from here with your body and with your mind, right? So this is of physical and of mental energies. Okay. On to Jupiter. So Jupiter is I grow, and it has to do with Sagittarius as well as the 9th house. I kind of like describe all of that, like how they kind of all flow together, but I did want you to look at how we're going to put the planets in our natal houses and how often that they change as well. So again, the sun is moving every 4 weeks throughout your houses. The moon is moving every 2.5 days, so that's like once a month you usually have, every 2.5 days you're kind of feeling different or about something. So if you were to actually like sit on something and think about it for a while versus like I feel about it, it's actually going to take you longer to think and to love about it versus I feel, because the I feel happens so instantly because it's internal energy and it's everything that like you feel. It's a vibration that you keep inside of you, but you might not be all out and about it. I know that like when you work with the moon and you know what moon you are, look at the elements that it flows with. Like, look at how Sagittarius moon would act with a Gemini moon. Like, would it make me more of a preacher when I have, like, the Gemini in moon aspect? Like, today is a Gemini moon. So, like, I'm a Sagittarius moon, and then they're opposites, but it's more of like, when you do opposites, you have to think of like opposites attract as well, okay? So just because something is opposing something, it means that there's all that play. Like that whole entire field is an open field, you know? A football field, like they meet in the middle. So sometimes you're going to meet in the middle of that opposite. But if I'm, so Sagittarius would be, would be squared at certain angles as well, and that's something to look into for your moon. And we'll go through like the aspects actually later, but just to stay on point with this slide, it's just like we wanted to go through what we kind of want to feel and am and think and love and act and grow and achieve and evolve and dream and empower about all these planets and their rulers and the rulers of their houses, and then correlate that into your signs. Like, again, if you're an Aries rising, this is self-awareness, and Mars rules your chart. So I act is always going to be throughout your chart, and you're always going to want to look at the aspect of Mars when you look at the transits. So, for instance, like, again, the first house, Aries, is going to be Mars ruled, but also it's a sub-ruler to a Scorpio rising because it's a sub-ruler of Scorpio. And that's kind of where, again, you want to do those aspects. So Pluto is generally Scorpio, and then you have that sub-ruler Mars. So that's where you kind of want to keep up with, like, what's going on with Pluto, what's going on with Mars. Mars travels about every 2 to 7 months throughout each house, okay? Jupiter is I grow. It's going to go through your chart every year, but the year, I believe, is like from June to January or June to December, something like that, every 6 months, something like that. But it is the whole year. So it's actually like starts in June and goes to like 6 months, and then it'll retrograde a little bit, right? So, but it takes the whole year for it to go through a whole entire sign. So Jupiter might play in your 3rd house for a little bit and then go to your 4th house and then retrograde back into your 3rd house type of thing. And then so Jupiter will, like in your natal chart, everybody born within that year of you has the same Jupiter, or will have the Jupiter before or after you, depending on the rotation of the planet, transit of the planet. Okay, so Saturn is going to move into a new house every 2.5 years. Right now it is in Capricorn with Jupiter and Pluto. Your Capricorn house, whichever house it is, look at where it is in your houses. Your Capricorn house, if it is in your 7th and 8th house right now, you're probably having a lot to do with, is this person worth my time? Is my day-to-day being rotated around myself and others? Am I doing my shadow work? You're evolving, you're going to be achieving, and you're going to be growing. So this to me is also like a process of like you go under, and then Jupiter kind of brings you up like a little bubble to the top of the surface, okay? So we still have Jupiter and Saturn in Cap till December, and Pluto is going to stay in Capricorn for quite some time. I do have to double check that date though, but yep, to go on with Uranus. Uranus revolves around The houses every 7 years. So if you are 7 years old and you were born with it in your 6th house, it is now moving to your 7th house, and so forth. So for someone who was born in their first house Uranus, when they reach 7 years old, it's going to be moving into their 2nd house. Every 7 years of your age, it's going to be moving into another house, and this also makes for the Saturn return at 30 years old. So it takes 30 years to go into every single house. And remember that there's aspects as well. So Jupiter returns are every 12 years, and Saturn returns are every like 27, 28, 29, 30 years, okay? Depending on the retrogrades. Uranus, if you're lucky to have a Uranus return, like say you were born with Uranus and Sagittarius, it'll take 83 years to have a return in Uranus. And think about it as an 83-year-old. Whatever house it is in your natal chart, it's going to literally take Uranus is every 7 years, going into every 7 years of a house. It's causing huge transformations in all these houses. This is the future you in each house. This is Aquarius, the humanitarian, the one who is the water bearer, the one who puts the weight on their shoulders for the team. Okay? This is every 7 years. Where is it in your chart right now? Look at where Uranus is right now. It's in the Taurus house. It's in retrograde, and it's still in its very early degrees. So for someone with Uranus born in their 8th house, and let's say that they're 14 years old, it will be then in their 10th house of reputation and outer energy. What are they changing about themselves? They're only 14. Think about it that way, So they're going to be changing, they're going to be changing every 7 years for Uranus. Neptune is every 14 years. And Pluto is every 10 to 20 years. The 10 years, I believe it's like very quick, and it's because for some reason it like goes in and out. So it'll seem like 10 years, but it's usually like 15 to 20 years. So Pluto generations are 20 years. So 20 years of people born within a Pluto time frame. It takes Pluto like 200 and something years to go around to return. So nobody actually has a Pluto return or a Neptune return, which is like 163 years, something like that approximately. But so you want to look at the generations in your chart. So if you're with someone whose chart is of a year before or after you, they'll definitely have like that Jupiter around your Jupiter, that Saturn around your Saturn. Uranus, again, is 7 years. Neptune's 14 years. Pluto's 10 to 20 years. And I believe I show that on the next slide. But I did want to show you really quick that as we go through the houses, where we actually want to have our houses is like the first house of self-awareness, and the 2nd house of virtues of self-worth, the 3rd house of logical thinking. Again, ruling Gemini, it's really mental energy. It's logics. So you want everything documented and proofed, right? So it's also communication. The 3rd house, Gemini in general, is very intelligent. It's kind of where your intelligent base is. That's why it's the mind planner. It literally is able to flex when it needs to flex. It's an air sign. It's a mutable sign. So it has that ability to adjust where it needs to make adjustments. And that's what causes that logical thinking of how to play with that Gemini power, right? Now, if you have, let's say, a 3rd house with let's just say Aries in the 3rd house, you would be someone who is also having that Mars energy to you, that where your action is, where you're going to have like a lot of action with your 3rd house. Logical thinking might be like you don't think about consequences. You're just there for the moment, or you're going to quickly learn, and then you're going to quickly learn what you should have learned like the second time around. Just because like Aries is the newborn of the zodiac, it's kind of like that newborn feeling to everything's new. And then the fourth house is your home roots, inner energy, ruled by the moon in Cancer. And it has to do with that inner energy that you're taking in from the world. Your soul boss is taking in energy. And it's kind of where the vibrations that are given to you off of other people kind of come into you. Okay, so in the fourth house, just think of it that way, as the home roots, where you started and where you're going to, with the energy that you were provided. The fifth house is joy and vulnerability. This is our Leo sun coordinator, because it actually, wherever your fifth house is going to be like your joys, hobbies, your children, your vulnerabilities. And it's opposite the 11th house, so that future you. So this is kind of like your roots, and then you're going to your fifth house. What brings you joy now? What brings you vulnerabilities? Because you've already learned this stuff in the fourth house. You've learned how to take in other people's energy, and in the fifth house, you're kind of giving out that energy into the world. So it's joy and vulnerability that you're actually putting yourself out there. The sixth house is of Virgo, like, meaning Virgo is the earth, meaning body, and the planner, mutable. Okay, so it's the adjustable part of your body, your day to day, your movements every day causes a reaction to your body, right? So every day that we get older, every day that it's more of like the analytical thinker versus the logical thinker. So analytics is like, okay, I'm going to take that logical thinking and I'm going to put it in a day-to-day routine, and I'm going to make sure that I have this, and this, so I am able to go on to the next day. Where am I putting my head at night? Where am I waking up in the morning? What are my daily rituals? This is all sixth house energy. It's our timekeeper. I'm going to take care of my teeth every day. I'm going to brush my teeth every day, and I'm going to know that I'm taking care of my teeth the best that I can, right? So that's kind of where that analytical thinking comes. The seventh house is unity and shadow work. And the reason it is unity is because it is partnerships. It's also known for marriage. I don't know if it has to do exactly with marriage or if it has to do more with partnerships. Not so much friends, but like who affects you will be in this house for sure. If you have a planet in this house, or if you have planets in this house, it's kind of like who is going to affect you. All the planets, I do want to put out there that in your natal chart, these are your planets. They are just how they are, feel, how they think, how they act, how they grow, and etc. These are your planets ultimately. I know that some people are considering Saturn, the sun, and moon to be your parents. So Saturn is more of like, who is the disciplinary in your life? Where is that in your chart? But it's also you. This is your natal chart. This is you. And that's why I needed to put in shadow work into the seventh house, because it's that bridge that crosses over from self-awareness to what am I not aware about? What do I need to change? What do I need to change to evolve? And that becomes that first to seventh house bridge, you know? So look at the eighth house as transformations, because this is also where we kind of involve people. It's above the horizon, okay? So we're involving people into our lives. This is like our bare naked truth that we give to this other person. So we're now taking that fourth house soul boss, and we're involving it with our eighth house soul builder. And this is where we kind of like let them marinate together. And then the 12th house is transcendence as well. But again, those are the water houses, but this eighth house is kind of where the power is at, like where all of that transformation of I and we combined to I trust you, I have loyalty to you, or I don't want you to know all my secrets, but I do want you to know this about me. This is kind of where we keep all of our shame as well. Like we can keep a lot of shame in that eighth house. It's our power, because we can hold on to something for so long, and then when we are evolving, we need to actually transform into creating our shame through that shadow work and admitting to our shame. And you're admitting that to others as well, and to say it out loud and to live your truth, right? But Scorpio's 8th house power is more of like the taboo and the secrets, right? So the thing about the 8th house is that it's kind of where you want to keep your secrets and only your loved ones know. It's not like this, it is above the horizon, so people will know, like, you're married, you're a mother, you're a child, or you're something, right? That's what they get to know in the 7th house. In the 8th house, they get to know you as an individual. What you're able to give to them and what you want them to know about you is all 8th house energy. The transformations that happen in the 8th house when you excel in the 7th house and you're no longer ashamed, you are going to then create a transformation in your 8th house. The sun in the 8th house, if you have it in your natal chart, it seems to be someone who is very aware of other people, versus them not knowing that they actually want to keep to themselves. They love that inner power of knowing that they know more than you. Let's go on to the 9th house, faith, preacher. This is long distance travel as well. This is the joy. This is my Santa Claus house. I love to call it my Santa Claus house. It's where the faith of the trine continue with that 1st, 5th, and 9th house. So the 9th house is the spirit planner, and it's kind of where the spirit planner comes into play with the joy, and it comes to play with the self-awareness, right? So there's also that vulnerability part, but the faith part of the 9th house really comes into play with that fixed 5th house, that vulnerability, that you're going to put yourself out there. It will cause you joy, or it will cause you to have these vulnerable moments, but it's able to help you. Again, it's like that bubble that's below the surface that's coming up, in the water. Even though it's fire. So, yeah, I'll think of an analogy for that one. The 10th house is the reputation, your outer self. It's the Capricorn. It's the body boss. This is your outer energy that you give to the world. This is, again, where you are achieving things, where your achievements are. Usually people think of, when I'm looking at the axis of my midheaven, it's the 10th house, right? So it's what I let everybody see me as. It's not so much the self-awareness house as much as it does combined with it on the axis, right? So the 10th house is going to be what you are known for. You want everyone to know this about you. Okay? The 11th house is the future you in the world. Again, with that Aquarian energy, it's the part of you that has this big barrel on your shoulders, and you're providing to the people, right? So you're the sole provider, let's say, to the people. And this is the individual self that you add into the collective. And the 12th house is the collective soul. The 12th house being that soul planner. That's why it's adjustable. It's transcendence. It's the I dream state. It's the realm. It's before you come here, and it's after you leave here. That is the soul planner. And that is why it's the soul planner, because you come in with a soul, and you come in with that spirit, and you come in with that body, and then you come in with that mind, and everything kind of like shifts around those houses for you. So let's go on to the next slide. I believe it'll just be like a part where I'm just basically getting into retrogrades and stuff, right? So the sun does not retrograde, the moon does not retrograde, but it's going to go through your chart every 4 weeks. It's going to go into a new house. The moon is every 2.5 days going into a new house. Mercury, again, this is going to travel as retrograde, so it's 15 to 60 days. And Venus is 1 to 3 months, again, traveling around with that moon, with the Mercury and Venus. Travels around with the sun. Mars is every 2 to 7 months, depending. With this retrograde, I believe it's been about 7 months, yeah. Jupiter is 1 year, just to touch base on that again. It's going to be like from like June to like June to June type of a thing. So June to January, and then it switches over again, but then it switches over again, you know? So it's actually 1 year, but it's actually like kind of like 6 to 7 months where it's actually like one sign, and then it'll move back into the other sign, and then it moves into the other sign, you know? It flip-flops because it retrogrades, I believe, once a year, for months at a time. Same with Saturn. So Saturn's every 2.5 years. Uranus, okay, so Saturn, really quick, is right now in your Capricorn sign. Whatever house your Capricorn is in is where Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto are. And those are like really big planets to be playing up with you in that house, in that particular house. Uranus is going to be there for 7 years. So this is the changer, who's the game changer right now. And it's in Taurus, and Taurus is the fixed body, and Uranus is dealing with the fixed mind. So this is the mind builder mixed with the body builder. What are we physically and mentally changing in this world right now? What have we been changing for the 7 years that it's going to be going and staying in this sign? Because it's still in like the first, like it's not even 10 degrees Taurus right now. So it's going to stay there for 7 years. And whatever house your natal Uranus is in, look at also the transiting Uranus. What house is that in? Neptune as well, and Pluto as well. Like Neptune is every 14 years. So every 14 years, it's changing into a new house. Neptune right now is in its home of Pisces, and it's in retrograde. And whatever house Pisces is where that Neptune transit is happening, and it's going to happen there for the 14 years. And Neptune is that dreamy transcendence. It's the soul planner, okay? And that's why they all kind of combined. Where's your soul planning going on right now? What house is it in? Mine is in my my spirit. It's in my 5th house right now. So Neptune being in my 5th house, Pisces. I don't have any planets there, so I would have to go with the house it's being of the Leo, which is the spirit builder. So I have a spirit builder mixed with my soul planner. So I have a lot of joy and vulnerabilities, and I'm going through a lot of that. Not so much changes, but like emotional changes and like lost at sea, right? So I'm a little bit lost at sea. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm going, and it brings joy to me, and it does bring vulnerability to me. And that's something that like me putting myself out there has done. And Pluto, the last 10 to 20 years. So I myself am 38. I've only seen or experienced Pluto the most during the 10 to 20 years where it was like changing and evolving, right? So I was born with Libra Pluto, and I'm kind of like that, the end of the Libra and Pluto generation. And then it started with Scorpio, which was there for literally like 10 to 15 years. And then it moved into Sag pretty quickly, stayed in Sag for 20 years. And then it's now, as of 2008, it's been in Capricorn, and it'll be in Capricorn for quite some time. So we don't have that much longer to go into Pluto with Capricorn, but yeah, it's definitely going to be on my list of things I want to talk about as far as generations go. Like how you can tell generation-wise, like people that were born in my era, we are learning all about computers, but we weren't taught them in kindergarten. We weren't taught them till we were like 10, 11, 12 years old. Some of them were 20 years old when computers came out, and still we didn't have Google. That was Sagittarius. Sagittarius and Pluto, they are known for the ones to have like this joyous, like optimistic, I call them like the generation like why me? Like, why? But why? Like, they're so optimistic. Like, why does it have to be this way? Why can't anyone help me? Why? They're kind of the generation that's teaching us to ask these questions. Like, why is it that way? Why is it that way? Let's make it this way, you know? And they're kind of changing the world, as much as we don't like to admit that they're 20 years old right now, but they are, and they're going to change the world for the better. This is Sagittarius energy, and as much as Pluto doesn't like that, like, great energy. It's like, okay, there's a lighter side to Pluto. You know, we don't have to do things that we've been doing for the last 20 years, the last 40 years, you know, the last 60 years. Things are changing. This is where like that Pluto that Pluto video needs to come out soon too. I really enjoy Pluto's evolution for sure. And here's just my chart going up as far as like where the planets, who the rulers are, and what houses they rule. And then also sub-rulers and sub-houses, right? So again, just like take that as a visual. I already talked about that. Yeah, it depends on where your chart is and what houses you're dealing with. If a chart reading is something you really want to get done from me, you can email me at maverickspiritastrology@gmail.com. I am putting up a website soon, and then we can kind of correlate, you know, how to get your chart reading. And also the transit reading too. And right now I'm going to get into just a little bit about Chiron and Lilith. So Chiron is a comet that travels between Saturn and Uranus. It has a really wonky orbit. Like it just doesn't really have a circle. It doesn't even have an oval. It's kind of like a shapeshifter, right? But it's our wounded healer. And when it travels around, right now it's in Aries. So wherever your Aries is in your chart, it's a Chiron activation right now in the Aries. So some people are 50 years old experiencing their first Chiron return. I believe it's 48, 49, and 50, 51, something like that, where it's kind of like returning. So what wounds do you need healed that you cannot heal yourself, but you need to maybe get someone else to help you heal? This is kind of where everyone's like the midlife crisis, but I'm like, no, not really. Like it's something about the soul healing that needs to be done. When it's in Aries, it's something about your spirit boss. It's something about Aries energy, that new feeling. So if you're anywhere from like 48 to 51 right now, what are you changing spiritually? What is that connection that you have with God? What is that connection that you might not have with God? What is your wounded healer, right? So people that have Chiron and Aries that are being born right now, they're not going to experience that wounded healer feeling until they're going and making aspects to that Aries house, whatever house it is in, right? So that's the other thing that I wanted to talk about was aspects to some of these bigger like things is that every 38 years you're going to have an aspect opposite of your Uranus. When you were born in Uranus, every 38 years you're going to have an opposition. So right now I'm having one. My Uranus is yep, it's 38 years old, so I might be going through some opposition changes, you know, and this is going to be my mind change, my mind builder, with my body builder, because mine's in Uranus in Taurus, right? And it's opposite right now because I was born with Uranus in my second house, and it's now in my 8th house, Taurus. So I'm having that Scorpio energy, that Sagittarius energy. It's my second house goes from Scorpio to Sagittarius, so in degree. So I have to consider it, right? So it's now opposite my body builder house, and it's now into my soul builder house, and it's the wounded healer house that owns it, right? The 8th house owns my wounded healer. So my body, my physical body, and my abilities to change my soul and to create that rebellion within myself, as well as for everybody out there in our society, right? This is the networking planet, right? And I have Uranus in my 7th house going into my 8th house. And it's just very interesting. We'll look at that. So yeah, that's just like the basis. It was founded in 1977 by Charles Kowal, and it is a comet. So before, I believe they thought it was something else. it was like a planet. They thought like possibly a planet, but it turned out to be a comet that travels with, in between, I should say, Saturn and Uranus. It's kind of like is in between there. My short story on Lilith is she's the she-devil. She's the she-devil in all of us. And it's like the opposite side of the Earth where the moon is. Okay, the moon, let's imagine that. So like there's a moon, there's Earth, and then there's this empty gravitational space on the other side of Earth that the moon is not currently in. And that's where your Lilith is. There's a dark moon Lilith, there's an actual asteroid Lilith. I like to call it like, I like to go into the dark moon Lilith as the true Lilith, where your true, yeah, there's just like a whole bunch of stuff about Lilith. That's like, I did involve this video, how to find black moon Lilith. This lady, Straight Woo Astrology, from Straight Woo Astrology, she really got into the details about it. If you want to look at her video on it. How to find it, basically. So wherever your angry suppression seems to be is in that house. Let's see. Lilith right now is in Taurus, and people that are experiencing or born right now with their Lilith in Taurus are going to have that she-devil that has to do with the material world. Like their suppressions are basically going to be going through life with this suppressed side. I mean, look, the economy is going to be like what? You know? Definitely evolving. But like, they're going to be going through some types of things where Lilith is like, I want this. This is my, like, it's almost a selfish thing. Like, she is radiant and able to get what she wants through her senses, her five senses, or her sixth sense even too, you know. Lilith is not necessarily a devil. Her story is of a demon, right? But she was really just somebody who did not want what she didn't want to be underneath the man, okay? So even a man has a Lilith, let's just say. This is where the man doesn't want to be under the man. He doesn't want to, you know, take no for an answer. He wants, he gets, you know, and just like Lilith, she wants, she gets. And she might have some repercussions for it, but that's just her natural instinct is to act in that Taurus way, right? So this, again, I just wanted to put up there where our Aries is, our first house is, where that spirit boss is, and then the opposites as well as its mind boss. And then you also have the spirit planner and the spirit builder as well, just to like put everything together. I had shown this before, so I'll go on to the next slide. My BB King is my special guest today. We're just going to look into the transits as far as his natal chart go and maybe play up a couple of things. So right now, let me get into his chart. So this is his chart, okay? And as you can see, he was born Sun, Moon, Mercury, and Mars are all in his 7th house, Virgo, and he is an Aquarius rising. So his descendant is actually Leo. And if you can see that his 7th house is actually pretty big, because it completely takes away the Virgo planets and engulfs it into Leo to Libra. If you could see where his DC is the 7th house, so it says 20 degrees Leo, and 8th house is Libra at 3 degrees. So it completely swallows up his Sun, Moon, Mercury, and his Mars. But that's something to take into consideration when reading a natal chart, right? Right now, we have to look at the transits, which is going to be quite funny if I can't pull this up, right? So we're going to look at the transit chart. And this is where we're at right now. These are all the transits for today. And let's see. So his moon is in the 7th house, and right now it is actually in the fourth house. And if you could see the IC, it's actually like on the actual IC. So he has, let's see. Okay, so he has the big trio with Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn all in his 12th house, if you could see that. He has Neptune in his first house right now. Chiron and Mars are actually in his second house, and because like he was born in 1925, he's going to have another Chiron return if he was still alive, right? So the Lilith here is in his third house of communications, and Uranus is in his third house as well, kind of like causing changes. It would be someone who would have these changes caused to them in that Lilith way, because she's entering and going to pass Uranus. So this would be all of that mind planner agenda, okay? Communication. This is someone who had Taurus in their third house, is someone who had that communication of love, of luxury, someone who liked to have, and saw that their worthiness was through what they have. So basically, when reading your chart with the transits, you're going to look opposite as well. So the third house is opposite the ninth house. And right now we have the sun in his ninth house. So you would want to correlate that to digging for the truth, putting light in a dark place, right? In his faith house, not necessarily dark, but maybe it was something that was like forever, like maybe he always had like a new idea of what it really was like for him, you know, throughout this ninth house season for him would be Scorpio during this time of year. The moon in his fourth house transit. So I see again is the fourth house, and that's going to be everything that has to do with roots and inner energy. And he has his in Gemini, which kind of puts you at the communicator of the house. Communicator, the skilled house, something that he did was self-taught. He probably, I mean, I don't know that much, but I do know that like he was pretty young when he started music, so that would like kind of correlate like where he wanted to talk, where he wanted to do his hand skills, where he wanted to do his short trips even, is kind of everything that had to do with that fourth house energy of, you know, skill set, learning, you know, self-taught, okay? So we're going to go into his fifth house is Cancer, and it has Pluto. This generation was more about learning about what is at home that needs to change. The whole entire Cancer Pluto generation was learning about women voters. It had to do with like Love is Love. They kind of like transformed all those movements because they were aging as this time was going. So I really enjoy the Cancer Pluto energy only because they were the ones who really turned and said, listen, I don't want to live with 10 people. I want to live by myself. And guess what? It's okay. That's what that Pluto generation did. Women were like, I don't need to get married to have a successful, you know, life. I can do this instead. You know, it was kind of like they played off of each other. And then there's also the ones that were the extremes where they're like, nope, I need to take on that responsibility at home. I'll stay home. You go to work. Or, you know, lives for these children where they were stable, even though there was like wars involved, very many wars involved in their lifetime, where they, you know, either had to go off to war or they had to, you know, stay home and do something for the better of all, you know, the people. Women went to work for the first time, you know, women went to college for the first time. The civil rights movement, like all of this happened during that the evolution of these Cancer in Plutos. Like, that's what they grew up and did. And people that hold on to the traditions of the, like, respect and stuff like that is something that is, like, from your home, something you learned at home that you brought to the world, and that evolution of Pluto into the world where we go. Right now it's in Capricorn, so it's actually exactly opposite, which is pretty interesting because if you think about it, no one really is going to have that opposite Pluto unless, you've passed away, right? So now that we're looking at this, it's kind of interesting. His Chiron is in Aries, and it's also, so his Lilith is in Leo. I do want to talk about that stellium, that Virgo stellium in the 7th house. So the things I do know about him are kind of not, like, exact for me. Like, I don't know who he was personally on a personal level. Like, so that would make me understand the fact that, like, he didn't put all of his stuff out there. He has his moon there, he has his Mercury there. That's his music, his hand skills, stuff from his 4th house are there, the moon is I feel, and he feels his day-to-day routine has something to do with love, his love of music. I know he was, like, on tour like 200 and something days of the year, and, like, he walked into a regimen, like, every day I wake up and I play at night, stuff like that happens. His Mars is there, his drive, his passion, his aggression, like, oh, I gotta do this, I gotta do this. Like, this is just implanted into him as where he is going to be aggressive in his day-to-day routine. His Sun is there, his ego, his self-awareness is there on the opposite side of himself. So, again, this is open enemies. This is shadow work. Like, stuff that he should have done throughout his lifetime was really look into his self. And it's kind of like that's where his music abilities came from. His heart and soul were put into this mind boss house, So his spirit boss was talking to his mind boss and being like, listen, you got talent. Let's show the world you got talent. And that's where our marriage is, right? That's where the 7th house marriage is. He gave it all to us. Everyone that listens to his music would understand this man put a lot of his energy, and it's obvious, into marrying with that music. His 8th house has his Venus there, and it's in Libra right now, but it actually would still be considered in his 8th house, right? And we have the Mercury retrograde going on in his 8th house too. So when you match up your Venus to Venus, it's going to match up when it hits Scorpio in that 1st degree. If you could see where the Venus Scorpio sign is in that 1 degree. And right now it's in Libra, 6 degrees. It's also still in retrograde for a little bit longer. I believe tomorrow it's supposedly stopping. But remember, there's a shadow for the next 2 weeks of that, getting all the kinks out of that technology, okay? So when your Venus matches up with your Venus, that's going to happen once a year, all right? And that is going to be, again, with the Mercury matches up once a year as well, and the Sun, once again, once a year as well. So in this chart, I just basically wanted to show you where the Lilith and Chiron were and where they are now. Because of his age, the Chiron is kind of close to the other Chiron, right? So maybe the wounded healer, if this person was still alive, if BB King was still alive, he would be going through another, like, spiritual awakening. That wounded healer is really about evolving into this next step of your life. And that's why it happens and meets every 5 years. Or, sorry, every 50 years. So that's pretty interesting. Yep. If you have any questions, again, I do natal charts for $45. It's soul to soul. And I like to incorporate my meditation with how I put out your information, and how you receive it will be on a soul level. I could also do transits and personal horoscope. That's $20 for the first time that I do your horoscope, only because I need to put in that extra time to get to know your chart. And then from there on out, as a subscriber, it would be $10 a month for that personal horoscope of yours. And I would be basically telling you, like, where's your spirit boss, where's this boss, where's that boss, and kind of like go into every little detail, even as far as like the days. I'll tell you, like, around this day for sure, look at this day for like ego versus like today I would tell you, if you were BB King, I would tell you, like, hey, your ego is in your ninth house. Like, this is a very faith-based time for you. Like, where's your wisdom at? Where are you traveling long distance? Are you like, what is the set tone for you this month? Would be anything that's very Scorpio like mixed with that Sagittarius like. So you're going to have that soul builder mixed with that spirit planner, and you're kind of going to go in deeper into yourself, but also on the outside. It's very outside, and even though the soul is very inside, the outside sun is going to be going into Sagittarius soon as well. So it's just like, think of it that way, you know? And I kind of tell you like what dates or what weeks that this ego would play against your emotions, you know? Yeah, so if you're interested in those things, my Gmail account right now is Maverick Spirit Astrology. And I'm kind of going into just trying to do the soul-to-soul natal charts with you guys and transits as well, because that's taking up kind of a lot of time. So I like to have my day-to-day, let's just say, my day-to-day routine is in Aries. So I can only promise so much with the follow-through and to be on time with everything. I know as an evolving soul that I need to look at that and promise, you know, due dates and everything. Okay, so thank you so much. I want you to like, subscribe, and share. Leave a comment. Please leave a comment. I would like to know what you're interested in as far as like what else is out there for you. Like, what else do you guys care to know more about that I could get into you with? All right, thank you so much. And this video is at an end. Thank you.